The Earl of Hartley's townhouse on Grosvenor Square had become a mausoleum of diminishing prospects, and Theodora Hartley had long ceased pretending otherwise. At 32, she possessed neither the dewy complacence that might have secured a husband in her youth, nor the convenient blindness that would have allowed her to feign ignorance of her family's calculations. She was, as her stepmother Lady Hartley remarked with increasing frequency, regrettably intelligent for a woman of no particular beauty and declining years. The observation was delivered without malice, which somehow made it worse. Lady Hartley simply stated facts as she arranged them. And the fact was that Theodora's two younger half-sisters required advantageous marriages, which required substantial dowries, which required the sale of everything not entailed to the earldom, including, apparently, Theodora's modest inheritance from her late mother. "The emeralds were your mother's, I grant you," Lady Hartley said that morning, her needle moving efficiently through her embroidery. But she would have wanted her daughters, all her daughters, to be properly settled. Arabella's presentation cannot be postponed again. Theodora stood at the window, overlooking the square, watching rain streak the glass. Her mother's emeralds had been promised to her since childhood. They were the only things of her mother's she still possessed. "Arabella has the Hartley diamonds for her presentation," Theodora said quietly. "The Hartley diamonds are insufficient for a girl of Arabella's beauty. Your emeralds would complement her coloring perfectly. They would complement my coloring as well, as they were selected for my mother, who resembled me." Lady Hartley's needle paused. "Are you being difficult, Theodora?" "I am being accurate, which I'm told is also regrettable in a woman. Your tongue will ensure you die a spinster in some cottage on the estate, dependent on your brother's charity. The emeralds will be sold next week." The Earl himself entered then, moving with the vague distraction of a man who had learned to navigate his household by avoiding its emotional currents. "Theodora," he said with slight surprise, "Lady Ashworth's musicale is tonight. Your stepmother believes you should attend." "The Marquess of Ravenscroft will be there," Lady Hartley said, "and he's seeking a governess for his daughter. A widow, ideally, or a gentlewoman of mature years and unimpeachable reputation. You qualify on 2 counts." The insult landed with precision. Theodora's reputation had been damaged 5 years ago when she'd refused an offer from Viscount Pembroke, a man of 60 with 3 motherless children. Her refusal had been deemed unnatural. What woman of 27 rejected a title and financial security? The rumors had evolved from there. None of it was true. She'd simply refused to prostitute herself to a dying man. "You're proposing I seek employment," Theodora said. "I'm proposing you seek usefulness. A position in a noble household would be respectable. You'd have independence, a salary, a roof over your head. How extraordinarily thoughtful of you to arrange my exile." Lady Hartley set down her embroidery with deliberate care. "You will attend the musicale tonight. You will conduct yourself with grace, and you will make yourself known to the Marquess of Ravenscroft. If you refuse, you will find yourself in that cottage by summer with an allowance of £50 per annum. The choice is yours." Lady Ashworth's townhouse blazed with candles and hummed with the particular energy of the season's early gatherings. Theodora arrived with her family but was promptly abandoned. She accepted a glass of champagne from a passing footman and stationed herself near a column, adopting the invisibility she'd perfected over the years. "Miss Hartley." She turned to find Mrs. Eleanor Ashworth accompanied by a man who made Theodora reassess her understanding of masculine beauty. He was perhaps 40, tall and leanly built, with black hair silvered at the temples and a face that seemed designed to illustrate the concept of severity. His eyes were pale gray, his mouth a hard line, and he held himself with the rigid posture of a man perpetually braced against something. "May I present the Marquess of Ravenscroft," Mrs. Ashworth said. Ravenscroft's bow was correct, but perfunctory. "Miss Hartley, Mrs. Ashworth mentioned you might be seeking a position as governess to my daughter." "How delightfully direct," Theodora said. "Shall I recite my qualifications here, or would you prefer a more private interrogation?" His eyes narrowed fractionally. Mrs. Ashworth made a small, distressed sound. "Your frankness is noted," Ravenscroft said coldly, "as is your apparent contempt for the position." "Not contempt, my lord, merely an appreciation for efficiency. You clearly have no interest in social niceties, and neither do I. So yes, I am seeking a position. I speak French and Italian fluently, have studied Latin and Greek, am competent in mathematics and natural philosophy. I have no experience with children, but can credibly claim I was one once. My references are impeccable, assuming you don't inquire too deeply into why a woman of my age and breeding is seeking employment rather than a husband." Mrs. Ashworth looked ready to faint. Ravencroft's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. "Your honesty is refreshing, also profoundly unwise. I could ruin what remains of your reputation with a single sentence. My reputation is already ruined, my lord. One more piece of rubble won't matter. Why are you seeking this position?" "Because my family is selling my inheritance to fund my half-sister's debuts, and I've been informed I may either find employment or live on charity." Employment seemed less humiliating. "And you believe yourself qualified despite having no experience with children?" "I believe myself more qualified than whoever currently holds the position, given that you're seeking a replacement." Mrs. Ashworth gasped. Ravencroft stared at Theodora for a long moment. "Come to my house tomorrow at 2:00, he finally said. "Berkeley Square, number 47. If you're late, don't bother coming at all." He turned and walked away without waiting for her response. The house on Berkeley Square was a masterpiece of Georgian architecture rendered forbidding by sheer scale and shuttered windows. The footman who answered Theodora's knock examined her with suspicion. "Miss Hartley to see the Marquess. I'm expected." She was shown into a drawing room decorated in shades of gray and ice blue. A portrait dominated one wall. A woman of extraordinary beauty, fair-haired and delicate, holding a baby. "My late wife and daughter." Theodora turned to find Ravencroft standing in the doorway. He wore black again, severely cut. "She was very beautiful," Theodora said. "She was." He crossed to a desk and withdrew a folder. "My daughter is 9 years old. Her name is Charlotte. She has had 6 governesses in the past 4 years. That's either remarkably bad luck or a damning commentary on your household. The first 3 left because Charlotte is difficult. The 4th was dismissed for incompetence. The 5th married. The 6th I dismissed 2 days ago for attempting to drug my daughter with laudanum to make her more manageable." Theodora's hand tightened on her reticule. "She drugged a child? Charlotte suffers from nightmares and nervous agitation. The governess thought laudanum appropriate. And you thought murder an appropriate response?" The corner of his mouth twitched. "I merely dismissed her without a reference." He gestured for Theodora to sit. "Charlotte doesn't speak." Theodora looked up sharply. "At all. She spoke until she was 4. After her mother died, she stopped. The physicians can find no physical cause. Or perhaps she has nothing to say to people who drug her." Ravencroft's expression hardened. "Miss Hartley, a child who stops speaking after losing her mother is not difficult. She's traumatized. And a parade of governesses who view her as a problem to be managed rather than a child to be understood would naturally fail." He was silent for a long moment. "You're very certain of your opinions for someone with no experience. I have extensive experience being treated as a problem to be managed rather than a person to be understood. It provides perspective. And you believe you could succeed where 6 others have failed? I believe I wouldn't drug her or treat her silence as a personal affront. Beyond that, I can promise nothing except that I would try to understand her rather than fix her." Ravencroft crossed to the window. "My daughter has been through more than any child should endure. Her mother's death was prolonged and painful. Charlotte was 4 years old and saw more than she should have. Since then, she's been subjected to physicians who poked and prodded her, governesses who viewed her as defective, and a father who has no idea how to reach her." The admission hung in the air, raw and unexpected. "I'm telling you this because you're the first person who's treated her silence as something other than a medical curiosity, and because I'm desperate. I'll need to meet her before I can agree to anything," Theodora said. A servant appeared, and Ravencroft instructed her to fetch Charlotte. When the door opened, a small girl entered. She was fine-boned and fair like her mother, with enormous gray eyes that held the wariness of something frequently hunted. She wore a white dress and held a rag doll with one arm missing. "Charlotte," Ravencroft said, his voice gentling, "this is Miss Hartley. She may be your new governess." The girl's eyes swept over Theodora with unnerving assessment, then dismissed her. She crossed to her father and pressed against his side. Theodora knelt, bringing herself to the child's eye level. "Your doll is missing an arm," she said conversationally. "Mine was missing a leg. I tried to fashion a replacement from a stick and fabric, but it looked like she'd stolen a pirate's peg leg. Quite frightening, actually. I also had a cat named Brutus, who was missing an ear from a fight with a fox, so I've become rather fond of broken things. They tend to be more interesting than perfect ones. The girl's grip on her father's coat loosened fractionally. If I were to become your governess, I should tell you that I'm terrible at watercolors. Everything I paint looks vaguely threatening, and I have no patience for embroidery. But I know all of Aesop's fables and can recite most of the Canterbury Tales, though some are quite inappropriate. I also don't believe children should be seen and not heard. Charlotte's eyes met hers directly for the first time. Would you like to show me your schoolroom? I promise not to rearrange anything or insist you sit up straighter. The girl hesitated, then slowly detached herself from her father. She crossed to Theodora and held out her hand. Theodora took it carefully. Charlotte led her from the room, her silence no longer feeling like rejection, but like a kind of trust. The schoolroom was bright, but made sad by obvious attempts at cheer. Charlotte released Theodora's hand and went to a window seat where a collection of objects was arranged. Stones, feathers, a cracked teacup, a bird's nest. A cabinet of curiosities, Theodora said. I had one too. My stepmother threw it away because she said it was morbid. But the bird's nest wasn't dead. It was a home. Charlotte picked up the cracked teacup and held it out. Inside was a perfect robin's egg, blue and speckled. It's beautiful. You must have very good eyes to spot something so small. Charlotte retrieved a slate and chalk. She wrote in careful letters, "Do you really not like watercolors? I genuinely detest them. I once tried to paint a sunset, and it looked like the sky was hemorrhaging." My drawing master wept. The ghost of a smile crossed Charlotte's face. She wrote again, "Can you really recite Canterbury Tales? In Middle English. Would you like to hear?" Charlotte nodded. Theodora began, "One that April with his showers suit." She continued through several stanzas, watching Charlotte's rapt attention. When she finished, Charlotte wrote, "I don't speak because no one listens anyway." Theodora read the words and felt their weight. "Then I shall have to listen very carefully, because I suspect you have a great deal to say." Charlotte considered her, then picked up a book, a primer, clearly too simple for her. She handed it to Theodora with an almost mischievous expression. "Are you testing me? To see if I'll insist you're too old for such books? Well, you are. So let's find something actually interesting. Do you have any Shakespeare or Greek mythology? I'm particularly fond of Medusa. Everyone treats her like a monster, but really she was just a woman who was violated and then punished for it." Charlotte's eyes widened. She crossed to a locked cabinet and retrieved a key from behind the globe. Inside were books clearly not meant for children: mythology, natural history, medical illustrations. Contraband. Excellent. Shall we be co-conspirators? Charlotte wrote, "Father doesn't know I can pick locks. Then I won't tell him." Every woman should have secrets. They spent the next hour reading about Medusa and Athena. Charlotte listened with fierce attention, occasionally writing questions that revealed an intelligence far beyond her years. When Ravencroft appeared in the doorway, Charlotte was leaning against Theodora's side. "I apologize for the interruption, but it's nearly dinner time." Charlotte slid off the window seat and gathered her slate. She wrote something and showed it to her father. His expression shifted, surprise, then something that might have been hope. "Are you certain?" Charlotte nodded firmly. "What does it say?" Theodora asked. "I want her to stay. She's never expressed a preference for a governess before." Charlotte wrote again. "She doesn't lie, and she knows about broken things." Theodora felt her throat tighten. "I should probably mention that I have no idea what I'm doing. I've never been a governess, and my own education was considered inappropriately comprehensive for a woman. I'll probably teach her things she shouldn't know. I'm also not particularly patient with stupidity or social niceties." "Good," Ravencroft said. "Society has done her no favors. I'll also require complete autonomy over her education. No interference, no insistence on watercolors or deportment, no physicians examining her like a specimen unless she requests one." His jaw tightened. "That's asking a great deal of trust. Yes, either you trust me with your daughter or you don't." Charlotte tugged her father's sleeve and showed him her slate. "Please." Ravencroft looked at his daughter, then at Theodora. "Very well. You'll start tomorrow. Salary is £80 per annum with room and board. You'll dine with the family in the evenings unless Charlotte is unwell." "Dine with the family? That's unusual for a governess. You just negotiated complete autonomy and criticized Perseus in front of me. I think we've established this will not be a conventional arrangement." Charlotte was smiling now, a small, tentative expression that transformed her solemn face. "Then I accept," Theodora said. Ravencroft extended his hand. Theodora shook it, noting the unexpected calluses on his palm and the way his grip was firm but respectful. "Welcome to Ravencroft House, Miss Hartley. I suspect we'll either forge something extraordinary or destroy each other completely. Possibly both," Theodora said. Charlotte took her hand, squeezing gently, and Theodora felt the weight of what she'd undertaken, responsibility for this silent, wounded child who'd decided to trust her. As Theodora walked back through Mayfair, she felt something unfamiliar stirring, not quite hope, but perhaps its precursor. She'd secured her own income and found herself unexpectedly moved by a child's silent plea. And the Marquess of Ravencroft was far more complicated than his reputation suggested. Dangerous, certainly. Damaged, absolutely. But there'd been something in the way he touched his daughter's shoulder, something in his admission of desperation that suggested depths beneath the frozen surface. She was actually looking forward to tomorrow. Lady Hartley received the news of Theodora's employment with satisfaction. A governess position with the Marquess of Ravencroft. Not what I'd hoped, but better than I feared. "She's traumatized," Theodora corrected. "There's a difference. Well, you'll have ample time to contemplate such distinctions. You'll remove to his household tomorrow?" "Yes." "Excellent. That gives me time to convert your room for Lucinda's personal maid." Theodora looked at her stepmother and felt nothing. Not anger, not hurt, just vast, freeing indifference. She spent that night packing. Books, her journal, a few watercolors, and the damaged doll she'd kept all these years. At dawn, her father waited in the hall. He looked older, smaller. "Theodora, I hope you'll be happy in your new position." She'd spent years waiting for him to defend her, protect her, choose her. She'd finally stopped waiting. "Thank you, Father," she said formally. She climbed into the carriage without looking back, feeling the past sliding off her shoulders like a coat that had never quite fit. Ravencroft House looked less forbidding in daylight. Her room was larger than expected, well-appointed and decorated in soft greens. It connected to Charlotte's chamber through an adjoining door. She changed into a simpler gray dress and made her way to the library where Ravencroft waited. "Miss Hartley, I trust your room is satisfactory?" "More than satisfactory. You're not a servant. You're charged with my daughter's education and well-being. That deserves respect." He withdrew a leather journal. "This contains observations about Charlotte, her routines, her fears, what soothes her. The previous governesses found it excessive, which explains why they failed." Theodora accepted the journal. "May I ask something impertinent?" "You will regardless. Why did you marry?" The question surprised him. "I loved my wife, profoundly." "That's not what I meant. Why marry at all? You don't strike me as a man who values convention." "I married because I met a woman who made me believe I could be something other than what my father raised me to be. She was kind, gentle, everything I wasn't. I thought marriage to her would soften me, reform me. Did it? For a time. But kindness can't cure what's fundamentally broken. When she died, I reverted to type. Or perhaps I simply stopped pretending. Your daughter doesn't need you to be soft. She needs you to be reliable. Children can weather storms if they know the ground beneath them is solid. And if the ground is already cracked, then you acknowledge the cracks and build accordingly. Pretending stability you don't possess is worse than admitting damage." His expression shifted. Surprise, and something almost like relief. "You're very certain for someone so young. I'm 32 and have spent the last decade managing a household that didn't want me while maintaining a facade of contentment. I'm an expert in navigating broken ground." A knock interrupted them. Charlotte entered, holding her slate. She crossed to Theodora and showed her, "Can we read more mythology? After your arithmetic, mathematics is non-negotiable." Charlotte's expression suggested mutiny. "Would it help if I told you Pythagoras believed in reincarnation and thought he was descended from the gods? Mathematics is far more interesting when you learn about the people who invented it." Charlotte considered this, then nodded and departed. "She's never negotiated before," Ravencroft said quietly. "She's only ever complied or refused. Then perhaps she's never been given anything worth negotiating for." Theodora stood. "Why did you accept this position? You could have waited for something less complicated. I've learned that waiting for things to improve is simply another way of surrendering. This position is mine. I earned it through my own abilities, not through beauty or compliance." that matters to me. Even if it means spending your days with a silent child and a difficult employer. Especially then. The easy path has never interested me. She held his gaze, refusing to look away first, and saw something kindle in those pale eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or curiosity. Then I wish you luck, Miss Hartley. Luck is for people who leave things to chance. I prefer determination. She left him standing in the library and went to find Charlotte, feeling the strange pull of a life finally becoming her own, shaped by her choices rather than others' demands. Behind her, Sebastian Thorne watched her go and wondered what he'd just unleashed into his carefully controlled existence, and whether he'd survive it.